Hey everybody, I know maybe some of y'all can't see me because I'm behind the statue. Can you slide over Okay, so I'll step over here. Is this better? All right, are you all right? All right, give yourselves a round of applause for being here today, please, in this sun. We are grateful that you are here. So listen, there's a lot that I can There's a lot that I can share about myself, and I will during the course of this assignment, because I don't take this as I'm just here to speak just because, but I do believe that this is a divine assignment. I'm a preacher. So you will hear that coming to and from me, but it's often difficult to name that I'm a preacher as an openly queer person of color. There are some pulpits that will never allow me to sit in their space, but I am of the belief that the divine created me, and when the divine created me and created us as LGBTQIA plus people, that God did not make not one mistake. As a matter of fact, we are an example of the divinity of the diversity of the divine. So as we encompass that, as we sit with that, as we dwell in that, then we can do more within this community. So I'm gonna start, I have notes, so that's why I have this folder in front of me. What I wanted to take today as a topic is from the newest release, and I hope one of the DJs will play later, from Beyonce, the evangelist, mother. She made a song talking about breaking my soul. And so I want to take for a moment for us to think about what that means. So as Reggie had already discussed, when we think about how our souls can and are broken, we think about what happened with Roe versus Wade. When we think about how LGBTQIA plus souls are broken, is when we have religious evangelicals that know more about a biblical text than the God that is referenced within the text. When we think about our souls being broken, there's a fear that the queer community, because we are getting murdered and discriminated against daily in multiple ways, yet nobody is saying our name. When we think about how our souls are broken, we are often not loved by those who are supposed to love us, and they do not want us to be as we are. This happens by not respecting gender pronouns of our trans, non-binary, gender queer, gender fluid human beings. This happens by trying to pray away a sexuality by calling it a spirit, instead of acknowledging that the diversity of sexuality comes from the divine. We do this by screaming that Black Lives Matter, but disregard the blackness and queerness lives that are taken, especially those of women of trans experience. Our souls are breaking because there's a knowing that queer people, queer youth more respectively, have reported anxiety, depression, bullying, and suicide. Yes, yet most likely they do not feel safe to share who they are because of internalized hate taught by parents, guardians, and others who say things like, this is just a phase that you are going through. Our souls are breaking because individuals are not employing our trans and binary community because some may not aesthetically, quote unquote, look as some may desire, and because some simply do not believe in their gender fluidity based on deep-rooted bias, which is a cause of discrimination. Our souls continue to break because there are words, derogatory words, that are used like homo, when that term was classified to make LGBTQIA people become institutionalized because some believed that our queerness was a mental disorder. And our souls are breaking because there are individuals who are wishing and justifying that queer people be condemned to a hell without realizing that we live in hell every day when we are not loved simply because of who we are. And this is the context again of breaking our souls. And I wanted to share a little bit about my own story. I was born and raised in this space. I went to Irvington High School. If you picture it, 2004, I'm the class of 2007. In 2004, when I was 15 years old, I was living in the Marshall Apartments. I stood on the 7th floor on the ledge of the apartment, and I planned where I wanted my body to land when I jumped off the ledge, because I did not believe that anybody loved me because of my sexuality. When I attended this high school, I didn't see people who looked like me. So I would cut school and go to the pier in New York. That's why pose is so important for those of you who watch the show. For some of us, that's where our community lied. We could not find ourselves within the space that we lived, which made living extremely, extremely difficult. But what I will also say about my story is that in the midst of me attempting a suicide, it took a direct encounter for me with the divine to understand that my life was worth living and that I would live to tell the story. So here we are in 2022, where I can speak to you from the place of life that resides in this body, in the authenticity, in the fullness, in the wholeness of who I am, to hopefully speak life and to let anybody who's here, who's part of the LGBTQIA+ community, to know that your life is always worth living. Regardless of who says what, regardless of who condemns you, your life is always worth living, and somebody is waiting for you to tell your story so that they can live and to live life more abundantly. Now, I want to also jump to the fact that what helped me to reconcile my sexuality and spirituality is that I'm also the best-selling author of a book entitled You Said One Thing God Said Differently. And in this book, I write about the reconciliation of sexuality and spirituality. That was the way that I was able to write myself free. In this book, I also talk about in the last chapter this theory of hate, and how with hate theory, which really teaches individuals, especially the queer community, to internalize hating ourselves because of our sexuality and gender identity, and as a result, we walk around life scared, right? Because we never know what somebody is going to do to us at any given moment, which is a very scary way to live. But within this book, I try to help us to understand that, again, the divine loves us, and as long as we love ourselves and we find our community, we can continue to shift the world. So as I move forward here and thinking about still Beyonce's song, You Can't Break My Soul. So again, DJ, I'm gearing up so that y'all can play it so we can, So we almost there. So I wanted to share, right, even though in the beginning I shared how our souls can be broken, but there are some ways that our souls won't be broken. One of those ways that our soul won't be broken is when individuals try to engage us in conversion therapies that exist, that try to make someone heterosexual or cisgendered. That's not a way to break our soul. Another way that our souls won't be broken is by promoting and supporting laws that suggest saying gay will destroy the innocence of children. That will not break our souls. Our souls will not be broken by praying that our lives are not worth living and spewing hate, when all we want is affirmation, love, and support. Our soul won't be broken by attempting to exclude us as queer people, because we are everywhere, not just in fashion and not just in arts, but we are in schools, we are in the courtroom, we are in the hospitals, we are in the White House, we are in faith spaces and all of the sorts. Our souls will not be broken by spewing religious rhetoric, because our lives as queer people are so hard, and we had to learn to see God as we see ourselves in order to live every day. And lastly, I will say that our souls will not be broken when I think about this good old hymn that says, when peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say that it is well with my soul. So being queer is well with my soul. Being whatever our gender identity should be well with our souls, because in it there is no mistake. And so I want to say this to our mayor. Thank you again for hosting this, and to Director White. But I would like to say that as we have this hashtag on our shirt, that we must do more than see each other. We must ensure that there are policies, procedures, and processes and programming that happens beyond Pride Month, as we as a queer people live as ourselves 365 days a year. I would also like to acknowledge the presence of our superintendent, Dr. Voss. And I also would like to say that I would hope that our Irvington Public Schools can do more in reference to ensuring that our teachers, that our administrators, that our paraprofessionals, everybody who's in the educational system who identifies as queer can be more visible, so that our kids won't have to cut school to go to New York, but they can find solace in the town and with the people that they spend the most time with. There's time for us to queer the curriculum, There's time for us to change it and make the curriculum more progressive so that these kids can know how to navigate the world inside of Irvington and outside of Irvington. To our allies and our co-conspirators, we need you to do more. For those who are heterosexual and cisgendered, we need you to use your privilege and power to advocate for us. In a world where positionality and privilege matter, we need you to use yours to speak to the ears and hearts of those who will not listen to us because we are queer. We need you to be a co-conspirator and speak loud. Silence can be a form of consent. We do not need any more silence from those who wear allyship as a badge of honor, yet do not engage in the war of equity and human rights. To our LGBTQIA+ community, you are loved, you are light, you are not a mistake, and you are not to be ashamed of who you are. Our lives are an expression of the divinity of the divine. When God made us, for those who believe that narrative, God did not make any mistakes. Do not let anyone break your soul to believe that you are worthless. I am here as a testament to show you otherwise. Use your voice and life to love in the face of hate, and always be sure to pay it forward by helping our community to build for the journey ahead. We have a lot to be prideful about. And to those who are struggling to understand us, and those who do not want to understand us as queer people, we ask that you hear us instead of turning a deaf ear. We ask that you see us instead of closing your eyes. We ask that you feel us instead of closing off your hearts. Think about us as human instead of compartmentalizing us as otherwise. And most of all, love us even when you do not understand. Some ignorance is willful because we choose to ignore what is right in front of us when we shouldn't. We always have to examine personal bias to ensure that we are adopting a growth mindset instead of a fixed one. And as I conclude here, I will say, as the hashtag says on these shirts that we're wearing today, we see you is just not a hashtag on a shirt. It is a public commitment and declaration that the Irvington Township and all of its constituents are committed to not just seeing us as queer people, but also hearing us when we speak and working with us to make this town more equitable and inclusive. We are more than our race. We are intersecting identities. Black Lives Matter is on the street here in front of us. Since that is the proclamation, let us be sure that we include those who are black and queer at our intersections. Because in the words of India Ari, every one of us is worthy, as long as we stand and fight as a united front. So again, as I close, I am Reverend Dr. Jonathan Wesley. I'm a queer person of color. I'm a preacher. I'm an educated person, but I came back home for this type of assignment, and I am looking forward to continuing to connect with our constituents as we continue to make Pride bigger and better and as a way of life, and not just one celebration in one day during a month that's recognized by the entire country. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for listening. My hope and prayer is that something that has been shared will penetrate your heart and that you will be empowered and encouraged to go make a difference. Thank you.